What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Aftersound here, bringing you Splinterlands content every single day. We also stream right here in this channel every Tuesday, Thursday, and Sunday morning, so come by and say hello. All right, guys, I want to take a look at the summoners for Untamed and Chaos Legion and do a little speculation on what we may expect from the Rebellion summoners. Now, we know that there's going to be a slew of rare summoners as well as a collection of legendary summoners that will come as an airdrop later on in the set. But here's the thing. We also know that there's going to be several other added benefits for these new summoners. You're going to have the summoner mechanics, or summoner tactics, I suppose, where you'll be able to implement those additional game mechanics. And then there's also a tease of them being dual element, both the rare and the legendary. Again, we don't have any information, so I'm just kind of speculating or expecting that maybe they'll have both of these. I think Summoner Tactics is probably going to be something across the board. Maybe not all of them will be dual element. I have no idea how the team is going to find a way to balance it all. But what we're trying to see here is how do you avoid power creep, right? And Matt addressed this both in the post as well as on the town hall and town square as something that the team is thinking very critically about. So I don't know where they're at. I have not seen any previews of what the summoners look like or mana counts or anything like that. I'm simply just looking at it based off of what we've seen in the past. So let's take a little trip down memory lane here. And one of the ways that we can take a quick look at this is the summoners for, or the rare summoners for Untamed. Let's start there. So actually what I'm going to do is pick rare. And I'm just looking at the core sets right now. I'm not looking at Dice or Rift Watchers. So you can see in order to preserve value for the Untamed summoners, when Chaos Legion first came out, keep in mind, this was like during the height of the bull run that these were designed. When Chaos Legion first came out, in order to help preserve the value of these Untamed summoners, you had an additional mana attached, right? So you can see here Tarsa is 4 mana, but Tarsa also does have a second ability. Now, not all of them were the case. Obviously, Kalia is fantastic, but you can see here like Obsidian was just a +1 magic, General Sloan just a +1 range. So in a way, there was a sense of balance brought in because you could use these older ones if you wanted to. And granted, there's not as many in circulating supply, but I'm just saying overall, you save 1 mana, but you only get 1 ability. Or you spend that extra mana and you get a newer ability or a more powerful ability, or even sometimes a second ability tacked on. But that was the balance there between rare summoners. When we look at legendary, the thing is, Untamed had a tremendous amount of crazy, overpowered legendary summoners, right? Just looking at Jotun, looking at Llama, and looking at Kitty. So I believe one of the things that they had to do, right? We're not counting Camilla and Quix here. You can kind of include them in the rare summoner portion. One of the things that I think they had to do was then reduce the mana cost for the Chaos Legion. I'm going to get so confused here. For the Chaos Legion summoners in order to make them competitive, right? They all still had 3 abilities, but these abilities were much more balanced out. They weren't overpowered like Blast or Last Standing, Cleanse, or even True Strike. But what they did offer was a different selection of abilities with 1 cheaper mana. And I would say that for the most part, Matt really nailed it. If you look at Chaos Legion as just a, in a vacuum, I would say that a lot of these summoners are actually quite balanced with one another. Now, in the context of the rest of the game, that's always going to be a big issue. Wild is always going to be wild because you'll be able to pair something with the newest set going all the way to alpha, and you never know what kind of crazy synergies will come around. But for the most part, with Chaos Legion, I would say that it is, it is relatively balanced. So shout out to Matt, shout out to the design team, I should say. Now let's go back. We're going to go and speculate now on what the rare summoners may look like moving forward. Now, if these rare summoners for Rebellion are going to have 2 additional benefits added on to them, right? So you're going to have the summoner tactics as well as potentially dual element. The first thing that comes to mind in terms of balancing them is, do we increase the mana cost, right? So is there a chance, a potential that we see a 5 mana rare summoner? Now that's the first thing that I would go to, but immediately I feel like we have to not consider it, mainly because the Little League rule set is so prevalent. So if you were to come in as a newer player, for example, and maybe only buy Rebellion cards, then you wouldn't really have access to any summoners under 4 mana unless you spent more money. Now, that's not that's not an issue. I'm sure that's not something that should be a make or break type situation. But it really, as much as I would like to see a 5 mana summoner, it kind of makes me wonder if maybe they're going to stay away from increasing the mana. So if they don't increase the mana, and I'm not, again, they could. I'm just saying if they don't end up increasing the mana, something that I might expect from the summoners is you keep it so that maybe there's some that don't even have an ability, right? Now that doesn't really play well with the summoner tactics, but if you add an ability or a choice of abilities, it can't be something as powerful as like an Obsidian. Like here's what I'm trying to get at. Let's say there's a life and earth combined dual element summoner, right? That has a +1 magic and a -1 whatever, right? For the other side. The thing is, when would you ever play Obsidian if you had that available? Do you get what I'm saying here? So it can't be that. And obviously they're not going to give a +1 magic to an earth summoner again. But my whole point is that it's got to be something completely different. Maybe they do like life and death or something like that, and there's a +1 magic, and that's something interesting, right? But on the whole, I wonder from an ability standpoint, it's going to be very difficult to have some kind of like one or other ability that isn't super powerful, right? Like maybe it's a +1 health, but then like, I mean, come on, who really wants to play like a +1 health? I don't know, right? Now it could be as specific as like giving a certain monster shield, right? We did see that in the example given, or giving an entire team -1 ranged. Maybe we end up seeing something like that. I don't know. But from that standpoint, I feel like the abilities are going to be very, very difficult to make competitive with someone like a Tarsa or Obsidian or Kelly. I mean, Kelly is obviously still awesome, but imagine a water summoner that's only 4 mana. Maybe it's water and earth or water and life, and it's only 4 mana, and you're able to play a either or ability on it. Now, granted, it's probably not going to be a +1 armor, +1 speed, so maybe they offer something different. But then that whole being able to pull in another element, right? So you're able to pull in not just life, or not just water, but also life. That's going to change things up, and therefore I go back and forth between how do you balance the abilities while also keeping it at 4 mana and under. Now maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they do go up to 4 mana. Or sorry, maybe they do go up to 5 mana. Maybe they even go up to 6 mana. And these summoners just end up being very expensive. And in Little League rule sets, which oddly come around way more than often, maybe you just need to have some of the older summoners, and they just say that's what it is, right? You come in and you can buy Tarsa, you can buy General Sloan. I mean, these cards are going for like 20 something cents at this point. So if that's the case, I actually wouldn't mind a 5 or a 6 mana summoner if that were to be the case, if it provided so much value and utility through the dual element as well as the summoner tactics. But that's kind of where my head is at for the rares. Now, when it comes to legendaries, I have no idea how they're even going to balance these, but I can immediately tell you that my guess would be an increased mana cost. So I wouldn't be surprised, right? We've seen 7, we've seen 6, we've actually seen 5 mana for legendary summoners in Untamed. I wouldn't be surprised if we see 8 with a slew of abilities. Maybe the summoner tactics for these future ones, or the legendary ones, will be you can add 2 abilities, or like it's a set of 2 abilities or a different set of 2 abilities. Either way, I don't know how all of that's going to work out. Obviously, I'm sure, and I trust the team to find a way to balance things, but that's how I think about it as we move forward. Now, these legendary summoners, they're further off down the road. That's why I don't want to spend too much time on them. I'm not going to spend as much time on them as I did the rares, but I feel like 8 mana or above is probably going to be a foregone conclusion. In order to make them competitive, you have to spend that extra mana. Now, once again, Rebellion is not coming out in a vacuum, right? It's coming out during a time where Chaos Legion is super cheap, and the assumption is that most of the players here already have Chaos Legion. Rebellion isn't going to be a set for new players necessarily. Now, if it ends up being the case that new players are coming in, I think new players will be excited about Rebellion, but you'll quickly see that maybe with the summoner, the mana for the summoners, that you will need to have a good complement of Chaos Legion cards, which thankfully at the moment, and probably for the foreseeable future, are relatively cheap compared to the Rebellion cards. Again, we're gonna be in an interesting, weird place over the next couple of months here, but it is exciting. So I'm curious to know, Do you think I'm on point? Do you think I'm off on my speculation or my thoughts when it comes to the upcoming Rebellion Summoners, both the rare and legendary? What are your thoughts from a mana perspective, from an ability perspective, from a dual element perspective? I'm curious to know, but that is all I have for you guys in this video. I'll catch you all in the next one and see you around the game. Take care.